Good evening and welcome to Africa News Network First Fast Live. My name is Cindy Mabi. Our top story at 6:30, Arts and Culture Minister Nathi Mthethwa has withdrawn advertising in media outlets which report negatively on the ANC, the government and President Jacob Zuma. Mthethwa says withdrawing government adverts from print media is part of defending the liberation movement and its leaders. The minister says there's a standing policy not to advertise in publications which have an agenda to destroy the government. It's not yet clear if other departments will follow suit. Meanwhile, Mthethwa's decision is supported by the ANC Youth League, but it may raise concerns over press freedom. Here's how Minister Nathi Mthethwa says government should spend its advertising budget. He says no one will advertise in newspapers which have an agenda to destroy the government. Departments must spend money on publications that support its transformation agenda, and government can't spend on negative media and expect not to be attacked by those service providers.
Are reporting very negatively about our movement and the government. So we can't continue investing on you when you are not reporting fairly. We are not saying be biased towards the ANC, but I think you are overstepping.
The problem with ENCA is that you come at every platform of the ANC either to try and set and record members of the ANC arguing against each other. If not, you come to media platforms to portray a negative image of the ANC. If not, you are out there fishing for stories that talk negatively about the ANC. If not, you are interviewing branches of the ANC and asking them about the leadership question, because you have become a propaganda machinery that seeks to discredit the ANC. No matter what answer you are given or how correct it is, you will encode it and decode it and end up sending something that you want to say out there.
And here's an indication of how much government spends on advertising. And the advertising government spend is at 38 million rand on radio, 33 million on newspapers, 32 million on outdoor advertising, and 16 million on television, and 1 million on magazines. As always, you're welcome to call in on 011-542-2186 or tweet at ANN7TV. We'll attempt to go through all your posts. And joining us live in studio is Njabulo Nzuza, is the Secretary General of the ANC Youth League. And we have Alison Tilley from Right to Know, member of the National Working Group. And we've just lost William Bird, Director for Media Monitoring Africa. He can't join us. But we have Ayanda Mdluli, National Spokesperson for the Forum of Journalists and for Transformation. Mahlatsi Gallants is with the South African National Editors Forum as their chairperson. Good evening to you, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to start with the ladies first, to be politically correct, and just ask Alison, in terms of Right to Know, when it comes to press freedom, vis-a-vis the piper paying a particular service provider, can we find a balance? Hi, Alison, can you hear me? All right, well, we'll try and get hold of Alison. Good to have you, Mr. Nzuza. Just in terms of government spend and what the value per rand is, do you think that it's commensurate based on how much government spends and the negative publicity they're getting?
Well, thank you, and thank you for having us this evening. Look, the most revenue generated by newspapers is actually on advertising. That's their main line of business. They advertise. Part of their advertising also includes government spend. Now, you have a situation that newspapers, they sell propaganda to our people. And this propaganda is sold without providing evidence, and people are made to believe that propaganda. It means government is spending money on people that use that money to sabotage operations of government, to the extent that it reduces public confidence on government. Such is a political agenda, clearly. The question is, should anyone be funding machinery that is meant to destroy him? should government fund machinery that destroys government?
Yeah, but is this your observation and as opposed to facts in the sense of how money is skewed or favored towards the conventional media and how they report on government? Is this fact? Is it anecdotal, or is it something that you've actually tested?
No, this is factual. On a number of occasions, you will have newspapers reporting, you will have newspapers retracting, and when they retract, they issue small pieces. But when they are singing the trumpet, they write very big pieces. You look at the recent issues. We are not spokespersons of the Guptas, and we must make it that very clear. We don't speak on behalf of the Gupta family. We don't speak on behalf of any family for that matter. What we speak about, we speak on behalf of the youth of this country. And the media is not factual. Sunday Times releases a picture almost in 2006. They say this is a house of the president that is being bought in Dubai. Some years later, they release the very same house. They say this is a house now owned by... So they started by saying this is a house owned by a Gupta family. Years later, they come back, they say this is a house that is being bought by the president. Again, it is established that the very same house they were showing was up for some competition to be won.
All right, let's hope we've got Alison Tilley back on the line. She's with Right to Know, a member of the National Working Group. Alison, good evening to you, and thanks so much for joining us. Can you also give us a sense of the media independence and freedom without necessarily, or rather taking out the opinions of reporters and journalists? Would you say that generally the media enjoys freedom, number one, and secondly, that there isn't bias, especially in the conventional media? All right, we're having gremlins there. Sorry about that. We'll try and get Alison on the line again. And while we're on that very subject, Ayanda Mdluli is the national spokesperson for the Forum of Journalists and for Transformation. Mr. Mdluli, thanks so much for your time. Do you think it's right for government to withdraw government spend or ad spend based on the negative publicity they receive?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and good evening to your viewers. As the FJC, we believe that this is right, and we welcome the move, or the announcement rather by the minister to set aside ad spend for black-owned publications. I mean, it's about time we set this aside. I mean, because this will enhance the viability of black-owned enterprises. In line with the revised BBBE codes of good practice. And you can't continue to pump money in companies that are anti-black and that do not want to transform. Last year, we presented to the GCIS to lobby for the set-aside share of the advertising budget. And government advertising in the mainstream media sits at more than 1 billion rand. And we also have situations where media buyers in the private sector continue to marginalize black-owned companies. So the growth of black-owned media companies will increase competition and ensure media diversity. So the move by the minister is good for media diversity, and only majority black-owned mainstream media company in South Africa, as far as print is concerned, is Independent, which is owned by Segunjalo. I mean, we saw how even the DG of GCIS, Donald Lipobo, last year once admitted that transformation in the media was incomplete. So we urge government to put their money where their mouth is, and also in my capacity as the business editor of the African Times, we are here providing an alternative narrative that not only celebrates black excellence, but also upholds the values of media diversity in the country. So we welcome the move, and we believe that this is the right thing to do.
All right, just please stay on the line. We have Njabulo Nzuza, the Secretary General for the ANC Youth League. Mr. Nzuza, again, we don't want to be in a position where there's censorship in terms of media, and, or rather stories and manufacturing stories at that. Are you not afraid that this will be seen as a sunset journalism to try and paint the government in a picture that may not always be flawless?
Well, look, in South Africa, I think we are one of the best countries in terms of media freedom. You go anywhere in the country, if you write something that is, derogatory towards the leadership or the president of that country, you are immediately shut down. You ask BBC if they will say anything wrong about the Queen of England. You ask them how they cover up for their own leadership. Here in South Africa, you have media freedom where journalists are allowed to say all sorts of things, which is all good so that we expose what is happening out there. But they need to be able to be stopped when they start crossing the line, when they start fabricating stories, when they start to pursue for regime change, when they assist foreign intelligence organizations to come and peddle their lies to our people, then they become a threat to the country. And when they become a threat to the country, do you continue to fund them and say to them, continue with your peddling? By the way, these very same media platforms are very untransformed here in South Africa. You know, one of the things that is just being said by the previous speaker is around transformation in media. Do you know that there's only one big, relatively successful, advertising agent? It is owned by black people who are young. It is only one. The rest of them, they are untransformed. So the very same money that government is putting up there is putting it into an agenda that is not assisting our transformation agenda.
So the bigger argument is on media ownership and also their transformation compliance levels. Themba, you're calling us from Durban. Good evening to you.
Hi, how are you, Shindi?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I just want to say good job that the government now actually sees. The biggest opposition for the ANC is the media, the mainstream media. They are the biggest opposition for the ANC. I'm happy that they are doing this. I hope it's going to benefit a lot of black people, also black companies, as Mr. Nzuza has said.
All right, Themba, we appreciate that. Just cite some of examples. We've got these on the monitor. If you remember the midnight reshuffle of cabinet being linked as well to the junk status and how the markets and the volatility of the rand will essentially explode. There hadn't been a backup to say, to give the new minister a chance. He's not necessarily radically transforming any policies. He's still very much on course in the interest of the country. Would that be one of the examples?
Yes, we'll cite an example. Last year, we went to the mainstream media. We tell them that ABSA and other financial institutions are colluding to collapse the rand. They do not bother to investigate. They call it a bluff. Later on, the Compensation Commission discovers this thing. They continue to call it a bluff. Thousands of people lose their jobs because of concerted efforts to collapse the economy in order to point fingers at President Jacob Zuma. The media does not speak about those issues. We mobilize people to go and claim the apartheid debt from ABSA. The media becomes quiet about those issues. So it is a very selective kind of media that is not willing to expose corruption that is happening in certain areas of our society, which is corporate in manner, that is not willing to tell our people about the changes that we must effect in the economy. All they are focused on is to destroy the image of government. Even if you can call the media today and say, let us go to child-headed households, and so that you can be able to let the country aware of what is happening out there and get people to come and assist, they won't come.
Okay, let's take a caller. Tsepo in Polokwane, good evening to you. And Mahlatsi Gallants, we come to you after that. Hi, Tsepo.
Hi, Cindy, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, and thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Yes, I would like to make a minimal contribution to you, to the show, to say that it is good for government to diversify in terms of dealing with the media and advertising. But I am of the opinion that the statement uttered by the minister said that no, we do not want to deal with those media that are antagonizing government per se. It's on its own wrong. In this sense, saying that you cannot deal with somebody who's antagonizing government, media especially, it seems as if it creates a picture that maybe they want to, or you want to use advertising as a leverage to those that will be talking only good stories, and where there's wrongdoing in government, they will not talk about it.
Yeah, that's the sunshine journalism that I referred to, Tsepo, but we'll get Njabulo to respond. We joined on the line by Mahlatsi Gallens from the South African National Editors Forum as their chairperson. Thank you so much for joining us. Just on what Tsepo was saying in terms of how much influence advertisers have on the editorial policy of publications, also suggesting that they would then call for a better picture or rather conceal what's really going on.
I think I'd like to take off from what the previous listener just phoned in with the comment that they had made. And I think it is quite important that we separate the issues here. What we have is we're debating a statement by the minister saying that they will stop advertising for media houses that are critical of the president, government, and that's what the issue is at the current moment. We as SANEF believe that this is an attempt to stifle our freedom and our constitution, which guarantees media freedom. We have always repeatedly said, whether it was done in the Western Cape with Helen Zeller's government deciding that they will stop subscription of the Cape Times because they do not like what it's saying, or even as far back during President Thabo Mbeki's government, where there was an attempt to say that they will reduce government advertising because the media was critical. It is an attempt to stifle the media, and it is basically trying to dictate to media what their content should be. And as SANEF, this we view as an attempt to stifle public opinion. And also it is abuse of public power, because these are public funds that we are talking about. And we have to differentiate between whether there's a difference if government is saying that strategically, because of the budget that they have, they will start doing more targeted advertising and look at who is going to benefit or who their advertisements are benefiting or the adverts are benefiting. That's a different issue altogether. But to simply choose a media house and say because they are very critical of the government, they will stop advertising, that is an attempt to stifle our media freedom, which is very core to the growth and strengthening of our democracy in this country.
Mahlatsi, please stay on the line. We're going to take calls and have Njabulo respond to your input. Brian and Katlehong, good evening to you.
Good evening, Cindy. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm okay. Good. Nzunza, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine.
I'm okay. Cindy, I'm going to be brief, but I just want to commend what the decision that the minister took. This is a bold decision that the minister has made. You cannot bite the hand that feeds you. Totally, you cannot. If I feed you and you bite me, then I'll make sure that I don't feed you anymore. And Cindy, to tell you the truth, it's not that it's only the issue of state capture that is in the public domain. The white monopoly capital, the white people are involved in big corruption, and we don't see that in everyday newspapers. I remember there was a story of this man who was working for Citizen. That guy who was dismissed. The guy was dismissed because he didn't want to write bad about President Jacob Zuma. You understand?
Yeah.
Those are the stories that we are not going to take. I congratulate the minister for making that decision. That is a bold decision, Cindy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Brian. Romeo in Limpopo, good evening to you.
Good evening, Cindy. I think Minister Nadine Petwa is on the right direction, because we're living in a country that basically is controlled by white media. If you look after democracy, the media industry never changed. That's why today when you look at the media is only focused on the ANC, and you don't hear a lot about a lot of issues that are happening. We always ask ourselves as a country to say, is it the thing that is happening in the country, the Guptas and only Jacob Zuma? So we are saying to the minister, we are supporting his decisions, and all the other ministers must do that. We are not saying that government must only support the media that actually support government or intend government to be correct all the time. But we're saying the media must use media because media can be distributed all over the country to push regime change in our country because the current government is elected by us as the people. So we're saying to the minister as well, he should also take a charge because when the SABC introduced 90% local content, which pushes transformation, it was the white media which was behind the issue of local content, not caring about the black child with an artist who rely on that particular content to get a play.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. Just a response. One Mahlatsi saying there's a concern that there could potentially be abuse of power, if you like, in terms of government dictating what the publications write about and stifling that freedom of expression.
Well, there is no abuse of power. In fact, it is government that is being abused by journalists, because they do things in a manner that, and I will repeatedly say this, they act in an irresponsible manner, they do not do their research properly, and they issue articles. Now, this is what you must know. When government spends, it spends because it needs to get its information out there. The very same media that is expected to get this information out there, firstly discredits government and then shows the adverts of government. As a result, the adverts that government put out there of telling a good story about what they have done, they literally fall on deaf ears, because you will see page 1 clearly discrediting government. Then on page 2, government is telling people, save water. Do you think people are going to take note of such things? They are not going to take note of such things, because it's the very same newspaper that is toning down on what government is starting to communicate.
Okay, Mahlatsi, just your response. It's a contradiction in terms to say you find, let's say, a particular government department or even President Jacob Zuma, he's maligned. Whether you like him or not, he's still the head of state. And the argument is that why should government then spend on a publication that won't disseminate the message of progress or development that the government is doing?
Okay, we have to differentiate between two things. The media is there to tell the South African story in its fullness. And a lot of the times we are continuously being bombarded with this, that, you know, the stories that the media is reporting on, they are lies, it is not true. But we must remember, it is the media that continues to uncover the corruption in this country. It is the media that told us what happened with the project to upgrade security at President Jacob Zuma's house. We would not have known this. Our role is to reflect to South Africans what is going on and what their public funds are being used for. It can't be that we can continue to blame the media for the wrong things that government officials and government ministers and state-owned entities continue to do. And we have to differentiate between what is advertising there for. If government is advertising to reach an audience and it sees that a particular media organization is reporting for an audience that would benefit from the message that they're putting through, they should do it based on that. It should be a business decision. It cannot be that we are saying that therefore the media therefore should only do sunshine journalism and talk only about the great things that government is doing to qualify for advertising. It is an attempt to silence the media and basically to say that it wants to government trying to influence the stories that go into content. As the media houses and as journalists, we've tried very hard to ensure that there is a line between editorial and also advertising. I mean, we can't say that because a certain supermarket is doing wrong, we don't report on that story because those are the advertisers. We have seen over and over again media houses and editors protecting their editorial space, and that line has been created. I think that we have to ensure that, you know, we don't say to blame the media for the actions of those that are in power is really a tired argument. And instead, we must be dealing with the challenges that are facing this country.
We're out of time. I just want to get Mr. Mdluli's response in that there could be potential abuse of power with the government dictating if they've spent on a particular a publication. Do you think that this is holds merit, or do you think that there's still selective reporting or reportage in the country?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, if there are corrupt activities that are going on. Investigations.
And we will expose government corruption. I mean, whether government likes it or not. But at the end of the day, I think just judging what Mahlatsi has been saying, I think it's pretty disingenuous, especially when you look at what the DA was saying when they called for the boycott of ANN7, an independent media organization. I mean, we have instances where private companies in South Africa have been treated with kid gloves by news outlets in the country. So and also we see the difference between how the reporting between governments and the private sector takes place. I mean, we know that when it's government, it's referred to as corrupt, but when it's white, it's referred to as collusion.
Yeah,
I mean, that's very disingenuous.
So yeah, we're going to have to give Njabulelo the last word very briefly. Going forward, is this now something that will be implemented as an ANC or government policy to withdraw advertising from all departments?
Well, this is what as the ANC Youth League was saying must be implemented. But there's one point I want to go past. It's always good when you disseminate propaganda. But when you start believing your own propaganda, it becomes a problem. Where you find journalists, they will tell you that, no, what we write on paper is actually true. What is written on paper is sometimes not true. It is sometimes not factual. It has divided families before. It has killed celebrities. It has even resulted into people killing each other. Therefore, we cannot assume that everything that is on the newspaper is correct. And for journalists to behave to say that what is on the newspaper is correct without facts, it's very wrong.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Again, thank you so much for your time. And Njabulo Mzoza is the Secretary General of the ANC Youth League. Alison Tilly, unfortunately, we couldn't get through to her. Ayanda Mdluli is National Spokesperson for the Forum of Journalists for Transformation. Mahlatsi Gallens is the Chairperson of the South African National Editors Forum. And before we take a short break coming up, but do stay with us on the other side of this, we have an exclusive interview with Dr. Ben Ngubane, the former Eskom Chairperson who resigned yesterday. So stay tuned to that right here on Africa News Network. We're back on.